Hey guys, my name is Priscilla Elias and today I'll tell you which lens I use for each type of photography. I've been shooting all sorts of events, portraits and products professionally for over 3 years now, and nowadays I have a kit lens that fulfills all my needs as a photographer. Before I start, I need to say, we always want more, don't we? I'll explain why I'm saying that by the end of this video. But first, let's go through the kit lens that I've been using for over 2 years now and that has never let me down to all of the photography jobs that I've done during this period I mentioned. I said earlier that I've been shooting professionally for about 3 to 4 years, but it was only about 2 years ago when I finally got all the lenses I felt I needed to fulfill my needs as a photographer. All of my lenses are Canon lenses, but you can find similar equivalent to the brand you shoot with if you're not a Canon shooter. I'm mainly going to mention why I bought and love each of these lenses, and you will see here in which specific cases I usually use each one of them. So this video should be helpful to you even if you're not a Canon shooter. Let's start this out. The first lens I had on my kit, which is still a very useful and beloved lens I have, is the 50mm 1.4. Awesome prime lens, very sharp, very light, small and easy to carry around, and because of its focal length, it's pretty versatile. I can shoot products, portraits, and good parts of the events I shoot with this one. When I first started professionally in photography, I only did portraits, and this was the only lens I had. When I was just shooting for fun, all I had was still a 50mm, but instead of being a 1.4 lens, it was a 1.8, which was an awesome lens also. I shot some weddings only with this lens when I started shooting weddings, even though I'd never recommend main shooting one with this lens only. Nowadays though, it is probably the lens I use less from my kit, even though I don't plan to sell it. If you're starting out though, this is the lens I think is the best one to start with. It's a pretty versatile lens. Just an observation. If you're shooting with a crop sensor camera, then instead of the 50mm, you might want to consider the 35mm 1.4 or 1.8, because the focal length of a 35mm will look like a 56mm lens on your APS-C camera, while the 50mm will look like a 75mm focal distance on your crop sensor. Nowadays, since I have all the other lenses I'll mention here today that might be better for specific types of photography, this is not a lens I use very often. But it's a very versatile lens and the best one for the price, I'd say. Nowadays, I mainly use this lens when I travel and when I want to be able to shoot portraits and a bit of everything around without carrying too much weight with me. The second lens I have in my kit is the 16 to 35mm 2.8. Great for landscape, great for vlogging, great for the blog travel style of photography when you want to see both the subject and the background in the photo. Also great to emphasize / distort things when you want to make something that's close to your lens look huge, but you still want to be able to see what's going on in the background. It's the lens I most use for vlogging, landscape photos, and I always have this one for weddings, events, and for portrait sessions as well, because sometimes I want to be able to shoot the whole church, a big room, a huge building or whatever without needing too much space for it. It's not the main lens I use for portraits or for events, but it's one of the lenses I always have with me for some wide shots in both cases. The third lens I have in my kit is the 24 to 70 2.8. This is definitely the most versatile lens I have in my kit. It works for vlogging, it works for portraits, it works perfectly to shoot an entire event, it works for landscapes, it works for products. There's pretty much nothing I cannot do with this lens. Of course, there are things I can do better with other lenses in specific cases, but if you have the money to buy one only good piece of glass and versatility is what you're after, I think this is the lens to go with. I can shoot an entire wedding with it, and in fact, this is the lens I keep 100% of the time during the ceremony of a wedding and maybe 70% of the rest of the event. Its aperture is pretty good, even for portraits, and especially if you use it at 70mm, you will get great bokeh with that beautiful compression you get from tighter focal distances. There are two downsides to this lens though. The first one is its weight and size. The second one is its price. You'll find this lens from $1,200 to $2,500 depending on the brand you choose to go with. The one I have is the one from Canon and it costs around $1,800. If it's a good lens for everything, you might be wondering why not only have this lens, and the reason why is sometimes versatility is not exactly what you're after. You might want even greater bokeh, you might be after a light lens or maybe a cheaper one, or you might want to be able to shoot wider or tighter and so on. You might have your reasons. I don't always want versatility. As I said when I talked about the 50mm lens, when I travel, sometimes I will walk for an entire day and I just want to have a good lens to register a couple of moments without carrying too much weight on my back or around my neck. So even if it's more versatile, I won't want to carry a 24-70 lens around my neck all day long. Or maybe I want to combine a good focal length for portraits with the best possible bokeh I can get. Then instead of having this versatile lens that would do a good job on that situation, I have an 85mm 1.8 or 1.4, which will do an outstanding job for that, and so on. And with that said, I'll keep the hook and talk about the 85mm lens. As I said a million times on this channel, this is my favorite lens for portraits exactly because of what I just mentioned here. An awesome combination of a great aperture and great focal distance for portraits. People look their best with this lens, and this is why I wouldn't use any other lens as a main lens for portraits. Okay, actually I'm lying. I'd love to have an 85 1.4, but since I don't, the 1.8 still does an outstanding job. 90% of my portraits you've seen on my portrait tutorials and also on my Instagram have been taken with this lens. If you shoot videos, also great for B-rolls, and if you shoot products, it can also take very good product photos. For weddings, I also always have it with me, and I usually use this lens for the portrait session because of the things I just talked about, and also because since this is much lighter than the 24-70mm lens, it's a great way to give me a neck break. And the last lens we're gonna talk about today is the 100mm 2.8 macro. No doubt the best lens for product photography. You can do great product shots with the 50mm 1.4 or 1.8, the 85mm 1.8 and the 24-70 2.8 that we just talked about, which are lenses I have on my kit. But nothing compares to the sharpness and the richness of details of this lens. It is mind-blowing. This lens can also be used for portraits, even though I like the 85mm better in most cases because I can get closer to my subject, and also if I want to have some of the background in my picture, it is easier with the 85mm lens. The 100mm many times end up being a bit too tight, and depending on the amount of space you have and on how much you want to show from the background, this lens might limit you a bit. Also, it is a bit slower than the 85 or the 50mm. I mainly take this lens with me for product shots and also for my weddings. And the reason why I take this to my weddings is because it takes amazing wedding ring shots. It captures every detail of the rings, of the bride's jewelry, and therefore, even though I will not use it throughout the rest of the day, it is the best lens for these specific types of shots. As it is a macro lens, it can obviously be used for macro shots of small animals, textures, and any other type of macro photography you'd like to take. As I said, so far, for all the types of photography I mentioned before, these lenses have served me perfectly well. If I had to pick one last lens for my kit, it would definitely be the 70-200 2.8, mainly to shoot wildlife and street photography. I also like the 70-200 for portraits because of its amazing bokeh and compression. But do I need it? No. For the types of photography I do nowadays, I do not need it. I'd like to have one at some point though. I will leave a link to each one of the lenses I mentioned on this video today in the description in case you want to check them out. Oh, and I almost forgot. In the beginning of the video, I told you we always want more, right? And the reason why I said that is because, as some of you already know, I recently got a Sony a7S III. And at this point, you might be a little confused about why I'm talking about Canon lenses only when I'm also shooting Sony now. Well, we always want more, right? And I'm slowly investing in my Sony gear. For now, the only lens I have for the Sony is the one that would be perfect for me to vlog and to create videos like this one you're watching. And by the way, that's the lens I'm using right now to film this video. It's the 16-35 2.8 GM Sony lens. Amazing lens for photos and for videos. I chose to go with that one first because the main reason why I bought this Sony was to get the best videos I possibly could. But now I want more. First, I want to have an 85mm 1.4 for portraits and B-rolls. Then, if I adapt well with it, and I realize this camera is as good as or better than the Canon 5D Mark IV, also for photos, I might end up selling my Canon gear in order to invest in some more Sony lenses. But that's still a story to come. Until then, I hope you're around, so you'll see how this all goes. If you like this video, please give it a thumbs up and consider subscribing to my channel, as you will help me to keep creating more content like this by doing so. Also, if you'd like to, please drop me a line in the comments below telling me what your actual lens kit is and if you're happy with it or not. Also, feel free to drop me a comment letting me know if there's any other specific topic you'd like to see me talk about on this channel. And yeah, I guess that's it. Thanks so much for watching me, guys. I will see you in the next video. Ciao!